Thank you. And welcome to the Arch Advocate Show. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for hitting subscribe. Thanks for telling a friend. That's how these things grow, man. Appreciate you. A lot to get to today. We have a conversation. We have a guest on the show today, my friend, who is a Manhattan corporate attorney, right? He's a big shot, lives in New York, and he's a far lefty liberal, but he's a friend of mine. And I have a theory, which I am getting ever so closer to proving, is that not everybody on the left are absolute lunatics and people who cannot sit down and have an actual discussion, right? Now, in this conversation, you know, none of this conversation means that this guy agrees with me or that I agree with him. It just means that we're friends and we can talk because we're men. We're grown-ups, right? We're adults. And that's how people do. And in this weird, bizarre period of history that we're in right now, right? Like, people are going to one day look back on whatever this is that we're in right now, and they're going to be like, those people were losing their effing minds. And that's why you're seeing so many people with this whole hashtag walkaway movement, which is growing and growing. There's a reason why that happens. Here's one of the reasons. On the 4th of July, on Wednesday, day before yesterday, a lady who had escaped the Congo in 1994, right? Now, to this day, like right now, if you go to the Congo, that is a horrible, horrible place on this planet. It's like a bizarre, it's like living in another dimension where people, human beings, eat other human beings. They eat them, like for food. And they do it for religious reasons. They're not just doing it because there's no cows or, rabbits or anything like that. They do it because there's a spiritual thing going on there in their minds, and that's what compels them to eat other people. Also, people who are not attacked by rape gangs are considered the outliers, the strange ones, right? Rape gangs are a big part of life in the Congo today. And in 1994, it was way worse, right? So this lady escapes from the Congo, right? Because she had an important message to tell the American people on the 4th of July of 2018. And that message was, you people are a bunch of horrible racists, and I'm going to climb on top of I'm going to climb the Statue of Liberty, and I'm going to rebuke the nation and cause a whole bunch of people to have to go to work on their day off, the day that we celebrate our independence, so that I can rebuke this horrible nation for all of its horrible atrocities, right? See, the thing about that is, dear leftist, right, is that for people to believe that, they have to suspend their disbelief, right? There's nobody that loves this country that's going to look at that and see it any other way, right? So the only thing that it can do is it can either galvanize people who already believe that, or it can take other people who already believe that, and it's going to shock them into such a state of awareness that they realize, like, oh, wait a minute, no, it's not a horrible country. Yes, we have our problems. Nobody has it all figured out, but we're not running around in rape gangs and eating other human beings. How dare you come to this country and stand on our statue that was a gift to us as a celebration of the freedom of this country? How dare you do that? Like, only one of those two things can happen. But for people who already love this country, like, you're not going to sway any of us. The only thing you can do is lose people. You know what I mean? And it's that suspension. It's what I mean by suspension of disbelief is like when you watch a movie, right? Like you watch, Wonder Woman, right? I still haven't seen it yet, but they got that girl from Israel, and she's playing Wonder Woman, and back in the day when I was a kid, it was what was her name, Linda Carter. She's still gorgeous. She's like 80 or something like that. She's still gorgeous. But here's a movie about a 110-pound girl who can beat everybody up, right? Now, if you watch that movie or read the comic book, you're going to believe that because you've suspended your disbelief, right? It's like, well, in the story, she's from another planet, so on her planet she has superpowers, and that's why she's able to do that. But then if you have another movie where it's Charlize Theron, and she's a 110-pound lady beating up 250-pound dudes who are equal to the task of fighting, because they're professional fighters, as she in that movie is a professional fighter. It's like, the reason why those movies don't do well at the box office is because you cannot suspend your disbelief. It's like there's a reason why in boxing and in jiu-jitsu and in MMA and in every form of fighting, there are weight classes. A 110-pound man cannot beat up a 200-pound man who has equal amount of training and experience. It's impossible. It doesn't happen. That's why there's weight classes. That's why you can have the best fighter in the world, who was at one point Sugar Ray Leonard, and you have the other best boxer in the world, who was at the time Mike Tyson. If those two best in the world fighters ever got in a ring together, Mike Tyson would kill him every time. Because Mike Tyson weighs a whole another human being more than Sugar Ray Leonard. Men are not equal to men, right? So when you have a movie where it's like, here's this just normal girl from Earth, right? She's not from Wonder Woman planet. She's 110 pounds and she's going around, she's beating up all these other professional fighters. It's like, no, I can't, I cannot suspend my disbelief long enough to get through this movie and to justify paying you $50 a head in the tickets and the popcorn and the soda and whatever. I'm not going to do it. That's dumb. Now tell me that the lady's from another planet and we can do business. You know what I mean? Like that's different. That's why the movie Avatar, you know what I mean? Like the reason people were able to watch Avatar, because it's like, yeah, obviously none of this happens on Earth. It's on a different planet, and it happens at some point way, way, way in the future. It's like, oh, okay, I can believe that. You know what I mean? Like you have to sell the story. And so if the story is, well, I was living in the Congo in 1994. I escaped the rape gangs. I escaped being eaten by other human beings, right? And I've come to America. It's like, okay, I'm on board. All right, good story so far. What's next? Oh, also, I hate this country, and I think all of you people are awful human beings, and I'm going to climb up on your statue and shout it from the rooftops. It's like, oh, no. You know what I mean? And this is something like the absolute cannibalism of the left. They just keep eating themselves. They won't stop. It's like that Octavio lady, Alexandria Octavia, the girl from the Bronx, or she's not from the Bronx, but she just won the congressional seat, or she won the primaries, the congressional seat. She comes out, she tweets out the other day, she goes, oh, I wonder how many of my other House Democrats actually have an economics degree like I do. And it's like, oh, no, if you're new to the show, I am a former commodity trader, all right, a futures and options trader in the commodities markets, and I have over a decade of experience working in finance, all right? So it's like, oh, now you're in my wheelhouse, all right? So you have a degree in economics, do you? When was that you graduated? Oh, 2011 from Boston University. Is that when you got your degree in economics, right? Oh, how old are you again? 28. Let's do some economics, right? Let's do some math. Let's see. It is now 2018, so that would mean 2011 was 7 years ago. You're 28. 7 minus 28 is 21, or 22 years old, depending on what month your birthday falls in. So what you mean to say is you have your undergraduate degree in economics. Now, for those who did not go to college, when you do your undergraduate degree, that's where you learn all the things, right? You do your maths and your sciences and your English studies or foreign languages or whatever. Like they cram it all in, and then you go off to graduate school where the only thing that you study is that thing that you want to do for a living, right? But undergraduate school is just an extension of high school, right? It's years 13, 14, 15, and 16. And when you say that you have a degree in economics, that's the exact same thing as if a somebody graduated medical school, right? Whose name is not Doogie Howser. If somebody graduated medical school at the age of 21 or 22 and said, "Oh, I wonder how many other people have their medical degree like I do," it's like, you son of a bitch, like you're not a doctor. Nobody's going to trust you to perform surgery. You just finished your undergraduate degree with a concentration or a focus on medicine. Now you have to go study medicine, and then you have to do your residency, and then, you know what I mean? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to happen. So when, sweet little Alexandria comes out and says, "I wonder how many of my House Democrats have an economics degree like I do." It's like, dude, you have an undergraduate degree. And here I'll explain to you how valuable that is. Miss Alexandria, how much experience do you have as an economist? Like, when you came out of Boston University in 2011, what job in economics did you get? Oh, that's right. Sometimes they would let you put the cash in the cash register because you were bussing beers and chicken wings and taquitos back and forth from tables as a bartender and a waitress. There's a reason why nobody let you practice economics or be employed in anything having to do with economics, because your degree wasn't worth anything. You went to undergraduate school, you went to high school again with a concentration in economics. There's people who never even graduated high school that know more about economics than you do. You know what I mean? Like, that's insane. What these people, like, the level of arrogance, and when you see that, like, there's people are going to see that. People who have been to college and they went and they did their graduate studies and then they went on to their PhD, and now they're full-time leftists, and they're going to see that. They're going to see you saying, "Oh, look how smart I am. I have a degree in economics." Like, there's going to be leftists who see that and say, that doesn't mean you're an economist. You didn't even do your graduate work. Like, you're not, why are you bragging about you don't, like, if anything, you should keep it quiet that you graduated and in 2011 with a degree in Econ 101 and then went and became a waitress, a bartender. You know what I mean? You should probably keep that quiet. So that's the thing, is that, this whole walkaway movement, it's being pushed. Those people aren't leaving on their own. They're being pushed out by Democrats and by leftists and by liberals. It's like, because, the majority of people have a brain. I've made this observation before on the conservative figure of how many people in our country, like, not in the world, but in America. The conservative estimate is that 10% of the people, the population, have an IQ that is so low that even the United States military will not take those people, right? That means that these are people whose IQ is so low that the instructions that come with, like, furniture or whatever just completely makes them want to jump off of a bridge. You know what I mean? Like, there are 10% of our population, conservatively, it could be more, but it's no less than 10% of the population has such a low IQ that they are literally a danger to themselves and everyone around them. Think about that the next time you're driving down the highway. Sleep well tonight. But the point I was trying to make is like, yeah, but there's another 90%, right? So 90% of the United States are people that can figure things out, right? That don't get confused at instructions and that sort of thing. And, some of those people are on the right, and some of those people are on the left, and those people that are on the left, they're being pushed out by way of reason. Those people are looking at it going, this is unreasonable. It's the same way, like, as I said before, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, right? And there are a lot of things in Christianity that baffle my mind. It's like, how is Joel Osteen, how is that even a thing? And you can look at that and be like, yeah, man, there's 70,000 people that go to that same church every every weekend, right? Like how is this happening? How is it that people like Creflo Dollar and these other people that are saying like, oh, God told me to get a private jet? It's like, how is anybody buying this, right? Like as a Christian, that offends me because it's like, at the end of the day, I know that people look at that and they associate that with me. And I really do not appreciate that. But, at the end of the day, like there's 10% of people who, have jobs and they figure out a way to get through life. But, there's 10% of people who are suckers, right? They're not smart people. But the rest of us are like, yeah, that's garbage and I don't want to listen to that, And that's what's happening with the walkaway people. Is like same thing in Christianity, same thing in any large group of people. Like you sit around and you look at like, well, no, MS-13 gang members are not, precious little jewels from the hand of the Lord. They're evil and they need to be terminated, right? You see, leftists see that. They see Nancy Pelosi getting up on there saying her crazy wackadoo, oh, you have to sign it if you want to read it. You know what I mean? They see that and they're like, wait a minute, what? You people are off the rails. I can't be associated with you anymore. Bye. Right? So it's a horrible thing. It's tragic. It's like watching a train wreck, but at the same time, it is good. There is good coming out of it. There are people that are just walking away, and as they're walking away, they're letting their contemporaries know, and they're letting their former leaders know, like, the reason I'm leaving you is because you suck. You're not making any sense, and I can no longer suspend my disbelief anymore. I can't watch this movie anymore. You're not making any sense. So anyways, I would like to introduce to you in this conversation with a liberal, my friend Sam. I'm going to drop you into the conversation at a kind of a random point because I just want you to get the feel that, like, this is just two friends talking, right? And you'll have to forgive, I had to, because of the way that I recorded our conversation just a moment ago, I had to mess with the levels on the sound. So if the audio sounds a little wonky to you, it's because I had to get in there and muckle with it, and I am by no means an audio technician. But I do hope that you get like the sense of like, look, man, there's lots of different people that have a lot of different points of view, right? And none of us have it all figured out, right? And you can't keep like thinking that everybody is your enemy just because they think differently than you do or think things that you're absolutely opposed to. You know what I mean? Just because they think that doesn't mean that like they're people that can't be your friends. You know what I mean? People that you can't take fishing with you or whatever, right? So here's my conversation with my friend, and I hope you enjoy it. Talk to you at the end.
Yeah, I was learning a ton. I mean, for us both being sort of interested, engaged people, to have met in this place with complete like happenstance. There was no expectation there, and so all of a sudden, I think, sort of, we were at a table, and certain things that we were saying sort of pricked up our ears.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, we said, "Hey, we should get together and just chat," and then we just spent a ton of time hanging out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember, but we ended up in a park that night.
No, I remember that. Yeah, and then we got then the sprinklers came on.
The sprinklers came on.
Damn it.
Yeah. So, but like, and I didn't even know. I mean, you and I have kind of polarized politically over the last, who knows, however many years. And it's been interesting to see because, I guess it's for me, it's sort of a good example of what's happened in the country. Yeah. Because, when we were first talking, I felt like we were totally on the same page. Like you were saying things that I was learning and I was really engaged and excited. I mean, we were talking about the financial collapse that had happened in 2008, which was relatively recent, and I learned a ton from you and was really grateful and felt like it was a really faithful encounter. I mean, and it wasn't just about that. Obviously, there was spirituality, some other things.
Yeah.
But like over time, I start seeing the things that you say, and I've developed in my own direction, and it feels like the common ground is kind of being pulled away.
Well, that's really the conundrum, isn't it? Because it's how can you when there's such great differences, right? Because you said it perfectly. It's like when we met, we were walking a a pilgrimage trail. It's a place to go out, get your soul clean, spend some time with whatever God you may serve, or the absence of God, or whatever it is, to just get out there. And so you have that sort of common bond, but there's tens of thousands of people who walk that trail every year, and it's like Gandhi said, there are as many religions as there are people. Like even in Christianity, my people, there's huge chasms. It's like the minute you start talking about it, it's like, well, there's Catholics and there's Protestant. And it's like there's this huge chasm. And then you get into, well, there's Protestants, but there's Baptists, Pentecostals, and Calvinists, and Lutherans, Methodists, and all that stuff. So there's all these different offshoots. And it very quickly you start learning, it's like, well, just because we have this one thing in common, which just happens to be, the most controversial individual of all human history. You know what I mean? Like, just because we have this in common doesn't mean that we're going to be friends on everything. Yeah. And even so, enemies like Ireland during the Troubles. It's like, dude, those were Christian people killing other Christian people. Insanity. So, how is it, like, in these times when people are getting more and more anxious and more defensive and at the ready to attack? It's like, what I hope to accomplish with my, with the Arch Advocate podcast and the guests that I have on, and whatever thoughts that I might share is like, dude, we have to calm down. We have to,
It's a lot easier said than done.
Yes.
We can get right into it.
Yeah.
There's so much that we can discuss. And of course, as a baseline, just saying, like, I think why you and I have always been able to connect is because we can totally disagree, and then we can laugh about it.
Yeah.
We can kind of come together and show mutual respect, and appreciate sort of the forces that brought us together in the first place. But I mean, I've had friends who look at me, either text with you or respond to something that you said, and they're like, why do you even engage with someone like that?
Right.
And I'm sure on your end, you've got people saying the same
stuff.
Yeah. We where I'm from, and I don't even know if it's ever been this bad, but it's it almost feels totally hopeless for me.
Yes.
To talk to people on the right. I mean, I've got a few friends that I try to maintain, and it's there's few things that are as frustrating. And the crazy thing is, if I have a conversation like this, I like to start by saying, we have the same goals, I think, generally.
I think so.
We want safety. We want, people to be able to live healthy, long lives. We want people to have dignified work. And we want a government that functions, not just functions generally, but functions for the people who elected the people who are in government.
Yes.
All this stuff. And if we agree on that, then I feel like you get so close to a common ground, but then we can touch something that's a little bit more of a barb, an electric
right.
barb.
Yeah. It's funny because it's if you and I had never met, if I didn't know you and we just met and you said exactly that, I would be like, oh, this guy's one of us. You know what I mean? If you just said exactly that, it's so the common ground, it is there. Of course we want a government that functions as it was designed to work by the people and for the people. You know what I mean? Yeah. We do want, as you said, and I really appreciate the way that you said it, it's not just jobs, it's dignified jobs. You want people to be able to work in an environment where they are able to tap into their creative core and contribute to the evolution of human society.
That's great.
That's I mean, we all want that. So looking around now, I make a lot of jokes on social media.
Yeah.
Not all of them are going to be funny. I mean, they're hilarious to me, but they're not always funny. But one thing that I notice, and this is, I guess it's as good a place as any to start off with, is the importance of a sense of humor, because one thing I notice is that the left. And real quick, let's set a ground rule here. Like when we say left, we're talking about left, Democrats, progressive, whatever. I mean, what other words can we use? We're just talking about.
No, that's great. I mean, there could be certain points during which we want to
narrow it in a little
more
bit.
Specific.
Yeah.
When you say left, I think I know what you're referring to, but I think we might have different ideas, because I also believe that the idea of the left that is portrayed by the right is sort of a fake. It's a fake imaginary. It's a straw man. You know, they say they act like Maxine Waters is like the left. It's like nobody elected her to be the spokesperson for the country.
Okay, so let's start there then. Let's talk about that for a second, because you've rebuked me a number of times, right? And I understand what you mean when you tell me, like, dude, she doesn't represent all of us, or that person doesn't represent all of us. So let's get into a metaphysical concept. It's like, well, my argument with that would be like, well, she's on TV. She's representing that she does represent you. And in this time where it's like, look, people on the right, we need to clean up our own house. We've got knuckleheads, traitors like John McCain in there, and I don't
know why. I don't know the background there, but okay.
All right, I can get into that if you want. But we've got people in our own house that have assaulted the Constitution of the United States and have brought harm to the citizens of the United States, and they're in the Republican Party. And right now, I think if we're gonna just classify everybody on the right, then Republican has to be in there. It's like we need to clean up our own house. And if John McCain goes on TV and says anything, I'm not gonna like it, but I'm still gonna have to look at that and be like, okay, well, that guy is right now representing me, and I don't appreciate that, so I want that guy out. Because
that's a good point.
You know what I mean?
I think it's a fair point to say that, like, whether I like it or not, I mean, she is a spokesperson for the left. I mean, she's whether or not I want to quibble with that or say, well, that exact sentence isn't exactly what I feel. I mean, there's definitely unification there that you can point to and say, look, she's there. She's speaking as an elected official of the Democratic Party.
Right.
And I have to own, to a certain extent, either that she's speaking on our behalf or I'm trying to get her out. I mean, I feel like those are your options. I think that's fine. And I would even love to, we could even go down like the list of statements that she's made, and I would be like, I could like point out whether or not I think they're fair or not, or I think they're defensible, or whether they're stupid. And I think that would be a whole other exercise.
You'd break a sweat on that exercise. I would.
No, I bet. I mean, I don't even know, because I don't like to pay attention.
She's a crazy person, and I don't understand. Now listen. There's more than enough blame to go around. There's a bunch of crazy people that what do they say, the inmates have overrun the asylum. It's like Congress is full of crazy people on both sides. And I'm not talking like crazy people like oh, I don't like them, so I'm just gonna call them some pejorative and call them a name, whatever. It's like no, they look legitimately crazy to me. I don't know why Maxine Waters is in there.
Here's the thing: is like, generally speaking, I mean, I don't know everything that everyone said. As you know, I've sort of just been working my ass off at my job and haven't been able to plug in as much. But the bits that I do hear, when I hear someone on the left, it's like, ooh, you shouldn't really say that because that's not going to be politically effective. But I can see where you're coming from. On the right, however, I'm with you saying that's crazy. That should not be said. Like, this is like destroying the world. I mean, as you know, like, I do believe that climate change is a real thing and it's happening. And there are a few issues that I think are more important than that.
Right.
And
fair enough. Like, that's cool.
People like to have arguments about this stuff. Like, my sister is a climate scientist. I feel like the few issues that I think are really hot buttons, I try to really get a lot of knowledge on this one. And in my view, I really think that the people who are in Congress, who are keeping us from addressing this and from talking about it, are threatening like human civilization as we know it. I mean, every one of us who's having kids or thinks they're having kids, it's like you are going to expose your kids to a world that's very different from the one we live in today.
Right.
And there's few things, like from a moral standpoint, that are as repugnant as the inaction that's come from our government on this one. And so, like, you know, there's single issue voters on, like, in lots of different parties. For me, it's like, this is a big one. I could be a single issue voter on this. Like, if you're willing to take serious steps to make us, you know, become more aware of science and do things to stop this from happening, then like I'm behind you. Like the rest of the world is there, the U.S. has to get there.
See, everybody, I told you, he's a lefty.
Yeah. I mean, I am definitely a lefty because, I mean, and we can talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Like, I love her. I think she's doing amazing things. And she's a proud democratic socialist, and I can't wait for her to just, like, skyrocket and make that word more acceptable in the mainstream. Because I
Sam, you're breaking my heart now.
We have a democratic socialist society. It's whether or not you want to acknowledge it, accept it. And do you want it to function the way that it can and should function? You know, like, the way I see it, you know, from my perspective as a corporate lawyer, the government is set up to help corporations make money. You know, I would love to see that flipped and get it set up to help regular people make money. You know, and I don't think that's the way it is right now. And I think that people like Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez, that's where they're at. And I don't think of it as a pipe dream or some radical fantasy of some like socialist, communist, Democrat, like whatever. I think it's like we have resources. Like I pay a shit ton in taxes. And I would like that money not to go to tax cuts for the super rich. I would like it to go to college programs. I think that, you know, I'd like to see it.
But a tax cut for the super rich is the absence of them paying more taxes than on top of income tax and payroll tax. Well, that's not something that you pay yourself.
Well, I don't really think that's necessarily true. I think that when you, like, tax policy is social policy. It's like they are rich because of certain governmental programs that exist.
Wait, whoa, hold on. Say that one more time.
I think that, like, when you look at who has money and who doesn't have money, it's not just because you're a magical smart person. It's because there are pre-existing systems in place that have allowed certain people to benefit and others not to benefit. And obviously, like, this is really complex, and I think this is like a fundamental philosophical point between left and right. It's like the left likes to look at like your circumstances and see a lot of the causality that helped you get to where you are in the circumstances surrounding you, and the right looks at the person, not the circumstances, and says like, oh, it's a result of the person. And this is a philosophical divide, but I think it's good to help pinpoint that.
Well, I think we should have that conversation soon, but not today because it's 6:00 in the afternoon and I've had a few beers. So, we can get into that conversation of like, well, is taxation a way of punishing those who work the hardest, or is it a way of rewarding people for not working? And is it do we have actual sociological models that where we have empirical evidence of, like when the people are taxed to a high degree, can they still flourish and are they still innovative? You know what I mean? Like we can do that conversation, but probably not right now. Like right now, I just to let the listener know, Sam and I go back and forth probably once every couple of weeks on when are you going to come on the show? We were actually going to do a podcast of our own, just called Sam and Pete Talk Shit, and just argue with each other. But on what started this conversation, what was the zeal behind getting together today was I made a funny joke about the young lady from where is she from? What's the district she's from?
Well, I think she was born in the Bronx, where I was born.
Where does she represent?
She's in the Bronx.
So, if she wins in November, she will be a Bronx congresswoman.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So she comes out and she says, "Yay, free shit!" Right? That's my joke. That's the joke that I made on Instagram and Twitter. Like, I'm gonna find out where all the free shit is, because here's the thing. Of the over a decade that I worked in finance, a good portion of that time was spent acquiring federal debt. Right? We would take over federal student loans. And then we would sell those student loans in a bundle to companies like GM or Raytheon or whatever kind of company needs a lot of collateral, right? So I'm very familiar with the federal student loan program, and I'm very familiar with the hypocrisy of all presidents who run, right? Anytime there's a presidential run, they all get up there and say, "Well, I'm going to make education more inexpensive," and they never do. What they end up doing is making more money available in loans. And they'll put a little bit extra in the Pell Grant program, but mostly what they do is they contribute to the fact that the cost of education, the cost of higher education, goes up by 8% a year nationwide and 10% a year in the state of California, and God knows what's probably similar in New York and North Carolina and whatever. They never address the fact that it's like, dude, okay, these temples, your church that you go to, where called university, where all the smart people are, where all the good, virtuous people are, these people that work there, your administrators and your professors and all these people, they're the ones who keep raising the rates by 10% a year. Why is it that it's like
that's true, but like let's shift the focus a little bit.
Okay.
Look, I also think that the costs and expenses at elite institutions in the U.S. it's
not just elite institutions either.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then we can talk about like public institutions. I mean, there they have a lot more control. I think that like we need to think about how like there are probably ways that we can make in-state tuition a lot more manageable.
Right.
And I think that my point is like there was a lot more tax revenue coming from big corporations and from wealthy individuals before the most recent tax cuts that came out of the government. There obviously is a lot of talk about whether or not this can be a good thing for the economy. I personally think that I look at that as an expense. I mean, it's tax revenue that we're not getting.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's debatable whether or not it's necessary for economic growth. I've listened to lots of different economists disagree on this stuff, and you and I are really going to come to a conclusion on that. What I do know is that there is a lot of pressure, and it makes sense. A lot of pressure for corporations who are moving their stuff overseas. And like my law firm has worked on this stuff, corporate inversions, where you incorporate in Ireland and you get all these tax benefits. And it's messed up stuff. Like, I think there are real solutions that we can do to that, but lowering our corporate tax rate so we have a race to the bottom, I don't think is a sensible solution. It just means that these corporations are making more and more money, and when I see their financials, like, they are just loaded with cash. Like, there's so much money in these places. It's like I see people talk about, like, how do we make these solutions? Like, there's not enough money. I'm like, there's so much money. Like, my clients are just absurdly wealthy.
Yeah.
So it's like, when I don't see the solution here to being like, let's just give them more of what they want because then maybe they'll play nice. It's like, no, like, governments internationally should band together and do something before the corporations, take over the world even more. Like, they're already there. I mean, every single major corporation is bigger than, like, each state of the United States. Like, they can get what they want from state government generally. And so I'm like, this is where, and like, I don't know the answer to, like, how do we fix college? How do we make it cheaper? Like, I don't really know, but I want smart people working on that question because it's in the rest of the world, people are not paying so much. And I think when we, like, we just give more money to corporations, let them do what they want, instead of taking more money for the government and paying smart people to figure it out, it's like, we're not going in the right direction. We're not going to be able to figure this out. The free market isn't going to fix this because the free market is going to give more money to the people who already have money. So it's like we have to fight against those market forces, and that's in order to get the people what they want, which I think is like better jobs and like cheaper schools, I think the government is a crucial player in that. And if we get less money in government and we like don't try to.
Well, Sam, you're going to end up confusing a lot of people talking about that, because in the first part of your sentence, you're talking about having more government, and the last part of that sentence, you talk about taking money away from the government. You don't get both. You can have one or the other. You can
I don't want to take government. I don't want to take money away from the government necessarily. I mean, I that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think the tax cuts are a good idea. I think that you are taking money away. I don't want like big government for big government's sake, but I like the idea of the government having enough money to do things that are beneficial for the population.
Okay.
Assuming that
how do we then in the case of young, what's her name, Alexandria? Alexandria. Okay, so when she comes out and she says, "I'm going to give free college to people,"
yeah,
right? What you said's very different. You'll never be able to be a politician because you get on stage and try to explain actual facts to people. There's actual economic problems involved. Their eyes will roll back in their head and they won't vote for you. Yeah, but when you stand up, there is an economic value, which is a detrimental value. But there's an economic value to standing up on a soapbox and saying, "Hey, everybody, I'm going to give free college to everybody." It's like, well, like if you're listening.
I guess the point that I've been trying to build up to, the point that I'm trying to make, is
okay,
when she says that,
yeah.
When she says that, I want to give free college to people. Some people are going to say, that's a pipe dream, that's ridiculous, we don't have the money for it. But other people like me will say, wait a second, the tax cuts that we just passed, in terms of economics, money in and out of the government, it's the same amount of money. Like we
got other shit to do, Sam. Why don't you work on lowering? Why don't you work on going to your liberal friends and say, why don't you reduce how much you're charging these kids, you fuckers?
I mean, I would love to. I mean, look, I mean,
right?
Corporations can charge what they want. I mean, look, at pharmaceuticals can charge what they want. We need to give them competition in order to get them to charge less. I just want you to acknowledge this point. Like, they passed tax cuts that, as a result, will mean like $10 trillion less going to the Treasury over the next however many 10 years or something.
Thank God.
That same money, if we kept the tax cuts where they are, that same money could have been spent on literally paying for the college tuition, public school guaranteed college tuition for like the entire country. So it's like, people say, how do we do this? Like, we can do it. You tax people and then you spend it on the stuff that the people want. So like, or you do what the Republicans want, which is just don't tax anyone, and the rich people, let them get richer. Let them enjoy their swimming pools while, down the street people are like eating rats. It's like, that doesn't make sense to me. So like, that's where I'm coming from. Like, yeah, it sounds ridiculous when she says free college tuition, but I'm like, we just spent that same amount of money in terms of net government revenue.
So what you're saying is that you trust the government to spend money wisely and righteously.
I mean, obviously that's a big issue.
Big issue.
I hate corrupt government just as much as you do.
Okay. So we're on the same page there, right?
I would be very, it's you have to be able to trust your institutions. It's hard, it's scary. But like I don't really think that there's an alternative there.
I believe there is. I believe there is, and it's a bloody one, right? When you have, like right now, there is an allotment, and I'm not going to tell you to Google it. I can send you the information after this conversation. But right now, actually, before I explain this, would you? I mean, before we get into the real side of this, let's approach it metaphysically. Would you agree that money can very easily cause people to do evil things?
100%.
100%, right? So we agree on that.
Yep.
In any time that any government does anything, right? Particularly the federal government, but you can see it at state and municipal levels and whatever. But anytime the government does something, they'll write up this thing and they'll say, look, I need, the mayor of the city or the president of the United States will say, look, I got to build a highway. And I got to build a highway from, Virginia to California, and I need $20 billion. So I've got to get the permission of a lot of people to get that done. Yeah. And everybody that he's got to get permission from, or she has got to get permission from, is going to say, well, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll approve this, but you have to give me $5 million so that I can, build wheelchair ramps in my town, right? And all these little attachments get stuck to that proposal, and that's what we call pork, right? There's a process in which that happens. It's that where politicians get together and they say, look, I'll give you what you're asking for, but you got to give me a little dough, right? And in that whole process, there's all kinds of shenanigans that take place. Well, I need some money because I need to fly to... God help me, but there was that politician that went down to Belize and was doing coke and banging whores and whatever, and you remember who?
It rings a bell.
Okay, all right, and it turned out that
or every member of Trump's cabinet rings a bell.
No, I mean this was during the Bush administration. It was a long ass time ago, and then it turned out it's the way that he funded it was his crazy lifestyle was the attachments, the pork that he was putting on when people came to give him favors. So the point I'm making is that money, whether you're Democrat or Republican, whether you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim, whatever, money will turn you evil quickly. If it's there, right? Because there's something in our DNA.
But that's why I think that we should have criminal penalties for such things, or not for pork necessarily.
There we go. I'm with you.
What you're talking about with respect to pork, I mean, you're talking about negotiation,
right?
And that's built into the way the Constitution works.
Which is fine. It's fine if it's righteous. The
federal government can't tell the states to do stuff, but it can tie strings to certain money that they receive.
Right.
There's going to be negotiation. The people who are good at negotiation are probably going to extract more value from the negotiations, and that's fine. And people should be able to negotiate for what they want. But of course, if you're doing stuff that is where you are taking bribes to do stuff. For private citizens, I think, right? The answer to your question about well, how do we trust the government to actually take our tax money and spend it wisely and do things that are good? I mean, there's a few answers to that. The first one is, look, we're already doing that. It's just the question is, on what scale do we want them to do it? Does it make a difference if they have 5 trillion or 10 trillion? Is that going to actually change the amount of corruption in the government? Not sure. You know what I think will change the amount of corruption in government is whether or not we have effective judicial monitoring systems, whether we have an actual realistic definition of what corruption is. The Supreme Court has changed that definition to the point where it doesn't make any sense.
What do you mean? Can you remind everybody, Sam is an actual real live lawyer, so please, can you take just a moment before you finish your thought and explain that last statement?
And this is a whole other thing that we could go down. I mean, I'm kind of talking about Citizens United and
I don't know
quote unquote money in politics, which I think is sort of the key problem with our country right now. Where
I would say it's the only problem. I would say it's the whole fix that, everything else falls in line.
Yeah, totally, 100%. I think it's crazy.
Why do we argue so much then, Sam?
I don't know. I mean, but I don't know. There are a lot of people on your side who think this makes sense. I mean, the Supreme Court has defined corruption so that it means quid pro quo corruption, where if you want to prove that someone is corrupt, you have to show that they received a financial payment from a private party, whether it's a corporation or an individual, and then directly in exchange for that payment, they did something in an official capacity that benefited that person. It has to be exactly quid pro quo.
Right, okay.
And when you sort of push those 2 points of sale kind of apart, you can't really prove corruption. And so, like, right now, you've got so many corporations doing so many different things in terms of lobbying and what they do, and gaining, like...
Lobbying's a huge problem. That's a huge problem.
Certain types of influence that they can get, which can't be corruption by the current definition of it. And so it's like, there's so many ways for corporations to do this. And that's, I think it's a huge problem. I really think that, like, a lot of the reason why we have a lot of people who are saying that climate change isn't real is because they've been paid off by certain companies to say that. But yes, your face, we don't have to go into
Oh no, there was a light that came on my camera. I'm just wondering if the folks at Google are chiming into our conversation right now.
Yeah, I mean, they probably are.
Because I'm paranoid like that.
They're keeping us safe.
God.
Yeah, so, like, that's great that we agree on corruption, but there's one thing: you have to have effective laws to prevent it, so that people who do it can get caught, and they can, there can be appropriate, punitive measures taken. The other thing is, like, hopefully we get people with integrity into politics. Obviously a lot easier said than done. But I think they do exist. I think there are people who wouldn't take advantage of the system. And so a combination of those things, I think, is really effective. Like, you hear about these court cases. You've got these, like, people who've been wearing suits and have been in these fancy places all their lives, and they are threatened with real jail time for $200,000 payment. That they received, and it kind of looks shady. Like Sheldon Adelson, it's like, what the hell? Like, I thought this was a good guy, but if you're telling me that this person has been taking real money for help, like, and giving, it's all crazy because this stuff happens all the time and it's not caught. But I guess, my only point is there's things that we can do, and I don't think that by, like, starving the government of taxes, of tax revenue, that's not the answer, because A, they still are going to take taxes, and you can still have corruption there, and B, with less tax revenue, the government enforcement mechanisms are going to have shittier people, and they're not going to be funded enough to actually function properly. Like the Republicans always saying, like, oh, the government is so crappy, it never does what it's supposed to do. It's like, well, give it enough money so you can hire good people. Like, all the smartest people.
Because when we do that, Sam, we find out that a private jet got a full paint job, and even the underbelly where the identification numbers are, that got painted over as well, and that jet got caught on a tarmac in Tehran with 1.2 billion of my dollars on it, and then the president of the United States had the dick and the balls to get on TV and said, well, we owed them that money. That's why, Sam.
Well, I don't even know about that. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh, President Obama sent $1.2 billion of cash on a pallet. Or 2 pallets, actually. And then that plane got caught on the tarmac at the airport there in Iran, in their capital city of Tehran.
I have a hard time believing that.
Sam, that's not conspiracy theory. I remember seeing that on the evening news when it happened. That's not conspiracy theory. That shit actually happened. And as it is right now, talk to any of your liberal friends about the $1.2 billion, and their response to you will be, well, we owed them that money because of how mean we've been to them with their tariffs and everything.
Nobody would say that.
I've had people tell me that, Sam. Liberal people. I've had people tell me that, like, oh, we owed them that money, and that explanation came from the administration. It's like, dude, we don't owe them any money. And furthermore, like, you talk about, like, I hear what you're saying, like, I hear the mechanics of what you're saying, and I know that you're coming from a place that is very respectful of the law and the order of this nation, right? But that's an idealistic place to live. When you get into the raw numbers, the last 3 presidents of the United States each doubled the national debt. So that's Clinton doubling it. Then
Clinton ended with a surplus.
He had a surplus of cash, but the debt, he doubled the debt. And then Bush came in and he doubled it again. And then Obama came in and he doubled it again. And that's how we got to $20 trillion. I mean, we can get into that at another time, but it's like, look, whatever you like or dislike, it doesn't matter. We're $20 trillion in debt because of shitheads in government. I didn't authorize that payment. I know you sure as fuck didn't. So who was it? You know what I mean? It was those people. And if we can get those,
that payment doesn't sound like debt. I mean, if we've given money to people, obviously, it's not like we're in debt to them.
You can't print up, Sam. If our treasury,
it's one example. We're talking generally speaking about the problem with corruption in government, and I'm just telling you,
yes,
like the way to fix that is not by saying like government is mismanaged. Let's take all money out of government. You have to just put the right people in place, and you have to give them enough money so they're incentivized to do a good job.
What if we could do this?
Way to make things work. And like, guess what? The private sector has even more corruption. I mean, you look at I think of the entire private sector. Like, oh, this is messed up for me to say, but like all of my clients, man, like they are the richest, smartest people on the planet. Like, I got this cushy law firm, and we represent the biggest private equity companies in the world who are buying, selling companies. Like,
God, I miss the business world sometimes, man.
It is crazy. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, like regular basis, we've got billion-dollar deals going in and out. They're just making tons of money, and it's like the government is set up to help them do this. And I think it's like they're not creating value for anyone. Like, I wish that these people, these like incredibly smart guys, were working on other problems rather than how to manipulate the tax code so that they can buy 5 houses, and that's what they're doing. And maybe that's just a tangent. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, it's not as though if we get rid of the government, like, everyone's going to be hunky-dory in the free market. Because, like, it just means that the free market has more power to buy the government, to manipulate the tax code and make it work for them so they get richer. The poorer get poorer, and then we live in a society where there are literally, like, 2 types of people. There's the rich and the poor, and there's really no overlap. And before you know it, like, this is a serious problem.
What if the solution was this? Because I kind of know the answer already, but what if the solution, as you alluded to earlier, was to make the penalty for clear where it's far beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's corruption going on, and we set up the laws to where lobbyists can no longer make a living as lobbyists, where any sort of monies earned outside of your salary as a politician would be seen as a criminal act, right? Cool. Where you would not even be allowed to participate in the open and free stock market, right? If you're a politician, did you know, well, actually, you probably...
I love that. Dude, that is a lefty point. I mean, we're trying to get publicly funded elections. Like, I would love that. No more private money in elections. Everybody, each person gets like whatever, 50, 100 grand to run your campaign. It's state funded, and you got to get out there. You got to talk to people. You got to get on the talk shows. You got to do your thing. But you can't buy like $1 million worth of negative ads and just drown out somebody else.
Right.
Like, obviously, there's a lot of nuance there. But the idea of publicly funded elections, where it's like, big companies can't be buying politicians, that's utopian to me. Because, like, right now, a lot of the people in government right now in Congress are, especially people who are like in the middle of like kind of like mainstream conservatives, quote unquote, whatever that means these days, like, are afraid to get primaried to the right. And like, if they don't do what, that nice guy from, Pfizer asked them to do, they know that there's a ton of money sitting in the treasuries at these corporations that will go straight to those far right-wing candidates, and they'll get primaried and they'll get kicked out. They'll lose their job. So it's like there's all these coercive threats, and I think that I'm on board. If you think that kind of thing makes sense, like, I think it would go a long way to help us get people.
Back in the day, right? Like, if you do your I don't know, when you went to your very prestigious law school that you attended, we will not be discussing that, nor will we identify your last names. I don't want my followers to be hunting you down on Twitter or anything. But
that'd be nice.
Did they well, I'm not going to ask you that, but if you observe the history of law, there was a time in American history and in other nations' history where it was acceptable to punish somebody by taking boiling hot oil, tar, and pour it over the body of a person who had been convicted of a crime, which was a death by burning to death while simultaneously suffocating, right? Because when your skin is covered, your skin is actually a very large breathing apparatus, and if it's covered in tar, it's actually death by suffocation. And since the thing that's suffocating you is on fire, it's death by burning. And then what they would do to you after tarring you is they would throw feathers on you, right? Yeah. And they called it tar and feathering. But this was not as barbaric as that description that I just gave was. The fact is that society was very reserved in using that particular punishment for people. And those people who received that punishment were very often, and most often, politicians. People who had betrayed the public trust, right? And that was, back then, that and public hangings, that's what kept politicians in line, right? Because the truth of the matter is that the human condition lends itself to being corrupted by power and being corrupted by money. We do have things in our DNA that make it so that we must survive and we must improve our whatever state that we're in at the moment. I have to eat today and I have to feed my kids today, and I need to do whatever I need to do to get that done, to get that mission accomplished. And if you come to me and say, look, if you just take this money and look the other way, you know what I mean? Well, it's like, oh, that's not a problem. And the next thing you know, I'm sending off plane loads of money to Ron. And when you talk about like getting the problem solved, and just to be clear, I am not threatening the life of any sitting U.S. politician at the moment, but I think that I think that the idea of severe punishment, severe and public and humiliating punishment, has to come back into the order, because these people, the problem is so horrible. I mean, I would defer to you to explain it, like how money it affects lobbyists.
I mean, I disagree with you on that.
Well, I know, because you're against the death penalty, but do you understand what I'm saying? Like, fear is what's going to the fear of God is what's going to change those people. And I
think, like, I'm just as concerned as you are about the problems with that will result from corrupt government officials and people doing stuff with, like, taking money, embezzling money. It's rampant. It happens all the time. I mean, I think, like, it's funny. It's like the amount of embezzlement in the private sector is like 100 times more than the amount of money stolen in bank robberies. It's like we always upset about bank robberies, but like the people stealing money, that's like your vice president or manager.
Hold on one second.
I need the formula for kill.
Yeah, go ahead, Ronnie. Sorry, my wife's got to make some formula.
Go for it.
And Daddy's got to get some formula. Hold on.
Of course.
Daddy's formula beer.
It's a little early for a formula where I'm.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, this
it's a different question. I mean, like, you talk about, certain types of punishment, barbaric punishment. And the only question is, like, what's effective? I mean, how do we get it? I mean, the reason, like, I don't really trust, it's hard to say that the state is going to get it right every time. It's hard to find people who are actually corrupt and, like, get those like, I think that jail time is already enough. I mean, people are terrified of jail. Going to jail is a terrible, horrible thing. Like, any politician who spent their life being a politician and they have to go to prison, even for a year, I'm like, that's enough to deter them. The only reason why they do it is because they don't think they'll get caught. If they thought there was jail time as a potential consequence, I think it would make them think twice. So, like, that's a different question. I mean, do we need more, like, do we need more better punishments? Like, I just think we need a better system. There should be, there's, like, I mean, you've talked about crypto stuff. Like, what if we had crypto tags on like blockchain type tags on the money in government, it would be in like it would not be susceptible to that kind of.
If you could trace every penny of it, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, I'm all for like, let's find a technological solution to this stuff. We're humans. We're super smart and capable of doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Like, I just want to have an effective solution to the problem. I mean, and what if there's somebody who's wrongfully accused? Like, I'm somebody who believes that, like, one person, like, who's in jail, wrongfully accused, is enough for me to want to tear the whole system down. Because if that's you or that's your brother,
yeah. Well, actually, that's one place, dear listener, that you will find that I am far left on. Like the idea of somebody having to sit in a prison cell, knowing every haunting moment that he's innocent and somebody else is guilty and walking around free. That seems like just a nightmarish proposal. But when it comes to money, the numbers don't lie. You know what I mean? Like when you have the way that our political influence system, because I listen to people, watching like the Young Turks or every single late night host nowadays and whatever, and they talk about like they don't like the fact that Trump or his sons or whatever are making money. It's like, oh, you're saying you don't like when politicians make money off of their deals? Now you have a problem with that? Really? How wonderful that you've showed up with your supreme virtue to now talk about this horrific problem.
You're saying that like Democrats did it already? Is that your point?
I'm saying they're all, you know what I mean? Like the whole system it's like you look at what a lobbyist actually does, like what their job is, how they get there, what they do once they're there. It's like, holy crap, man, like this whole thing is set up on bribes and backhand deals. And it's like, this has to stop. And I will be working to... What?
But there's some people who are... I mean, like, honestly, I know maybe you'll crucify me for this or, like, go nuts, but, like, that's why I love Bernie Sanders so much.
Why?
Because like, he's just spent his life doing public service, and he has not made...
Dude, he got kicked out of a commune for refusing to work.
I mean, I don't know about that particular...
What?
I haven't heard about that, but I know that, like, the guy, he's put his dues in, he works hard, he tries to... He's been saying the same arguments.
How did he make $1 million last year? Let me ask you that. How did he make $1 million last year?
Well, I'm guessing that he made it legitimately if $1 million is actually what he made, because
he's made $1 million for the last 3 consecutive years.
I mean, he's been earning a pretty decent salary for decades now.
$220,000. It's like $220.
Yeah, and then you save all that. There's probably a 401k. You save it, you're going to be getting capital gains.
Sam, he didn't make $1 million in his 401k.
I mean, there's way. I mean, I don't think that he's taking money from shady folks. I'm sure he disclose his tax returns. I mean, all of his money is there.
I'm sure it's all legitimate. I'm just saying it's like,
And I don't have a problem with people making money, and $1 million ain't that much these days.
Yeah, but if you're,
like, I do think Hillary's probably messed up. Like, I don't really like what they were doing with their cash. I mean, they were making a ton.
Well,
of
I'm
money.
glad we agree on something, because that fucking bitch is gonna burn in hell for the rest of her life. What a horrible, like, dear God, you know what I mean? Like, I don't understand. Like, like you can call me a Trumpster, Trumplican, whatever. It's like, dude, do you understand how close? Like, not you, but like your liberal friends who rebuke you for talking to me. It's like, do you realize how close we were to having her as president? Are you saying that you wish that she was fucking president? That crazy.
100%, I do wish that. I really do.
Really?
I really do.
Whoa. Okay. All right.
Well, I mean, look, we can go to all the different things what Trump has done.
Hold on a second. I just want to make sure that I heard you right. If you were given a magic wand, right, with a genie in a bottle and with one wish, not 3, and it was, Sam, you have one choice. Like, we're not going to give you your wish. We're just going to tell you what your options are here, and then you can pick one, and then we'll grant that. Either Trump stays in office, or you can wish the other way, and Hillary automatically wins the 2016 election, and ipso facto.
There's no question. There's no question.
Really?
There's no question.
Wow. Okay. We've been recording now for 58 minutes and 32 seconds. That's going to be it for today's show. And I am sorry, dear listener, that truth was revealed just at the 1 hour mark, because there's no fucking way we're getting to the bottom of that in the next minute and a half.
I can tell it to you in 1 second. The Supreme Court.
Okay. What?
The Supreme Court. You've tipped the balance towards the Republicans for the next 40 years, and people on my side are literally crying. I mean, I
don't give a shit if people are crying.
This time next year, there'll be 20 states where abortion is legal.
Thank God.
That means Thank
God. Thank God.
That just means women will be dying with clothes hangers.
No, they won't.
Yeah, they will be.
No, they won't.
Trust me, that is a direct consequence.
I don't trust you. No, they won't. Nobody's going to die from coat hangers.
I mean, I have a good friend who's a journalist who just...
Did she die from a coat hanger?
She wrote a story about people who are dying from coat hangers.
In America?
Oh, yeah.
When?
All over the country, where it's happening right now.
People are dying from coat hangers?
Yes.
In America?
There are underground abortion networks that are not as safe as the doctor's office would be. That exists. Because if you are terrified, no, you can't take care of a baby, and you don't know what to do, what do? I mean, that's one issue. Look, we don't have that's a hot button, but I'm just saying, Supreme Court.
So you would literally, like, knowing what's alleged right now about Hillary Clinton, right, and what those allegations, if they come out to be true. Because, obviously nobody has charged her with a crime, so at this point nobody truly knows. But if those allegations turn out to be true, and the allegations about Haiti and the Clinton Foundation dealings with money as it applies to Haiti, if those things come out and come out to be true, you're saying that you would prefer that person who, if those allegations are true, has nothing in her heart. It has nothing in her heart but contempt for the American people.
I don't think that's true at all. I don't think. I mean, look.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Sam. You know what? We will talk about.
Trump literally owes a huge favor to Putin. I mean, that's also. He's equally likely to be true. Okay, that's okay. You're right. Well, equally, because nobody's been charged with a crime. That's right. I think a lot more likely to be true. But that's aside the point. I'm just saying, both of them, I think of as pretty corrupt individuals. But Hillary, I know, has respect for institutions, political institutions. She's been working in and through and for them her whole life. Trump thinks that they're bogus and stupid and wants to dismantle the entire, all the edifice of institutions which we've created, which exist to safeguard the public from arbitrary decisions at the top. He's taking the whole thing apart, bit by bit. I think it's doing a lot of
you don't like it when the president makes arbitrary decisions on his own?
Well, we can talk about what Obama did.
No, well, listen, Sam, we got to go. We got to wrap this up. This has been, again, my friend. This is, as always, you've been... articulate, right, with your thoughts. You have helped me. You have helped me understand what it is that you think and why you think it, and now I feel closer to you. It's, as I said just a second ago, it's unfortunate that you said what you said when you said it, because it's, this is an hour-long podcast and we're a little bit over right now. But please, come back on the show, and we will get more into allowing my friend Sam to deconstruct his views on Satan herself, Hillary Rodham Clinton. I am not with her. Thank you so much, Sam.
Hey, it was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Right. So that was my conversation with Sam. Hey, I hope he's going to come back on, man, because we really got into it there at the last minute. And I wanted to spend some more time on that. So keep your eye open for the next conversation with, it's just Pete and Sam argue about stuff. Also, if you would hit subscribe on the YouTube show, or, hit share on your Facebook or on your Twitter, share it to Reddit, all those things, man, all that stuff really helps. So I really appreciate it. If you want to support the show financially, if you want, you can go onto my website, archadvocate.com, and you can become a monthly patron, or you can send some money via PayPal, whatever you want. That's it for the show, and I will talk to you on Monday. Have a good one.